the liberal guys.
I love his wife.
The Liberal Party is going to win now in the next election, most likely. And they were down and out. Isn't that going to make them more hostile to us and possibly
I'd rather deal with a liberal than a
for
conservative.
China, closer to Canada, and that would really put us in a bind.
The conservative that's running is stupidly no friend of mine. I don't know him, but he said negative things. So when he says negative things, I couldn't care less. I think it's easier to deal, actually, with a liberal. And maybe they're going to win, but I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me at all.
So your end game is what with them?
My end game is I don't want to have a big deficit.
Every single time I make a video like this, it always comes with tremendous backlash. Hundreds, if not thousands of people start to unsubscribe. I don't like Mr. Sunshine Baby anymore. Oh, he's not giving me confirmation bias. Look, I'm not a journalist. I'm not a reporter. In fact, every single person that makes videos like this on YouTube channels, they're not journalists or reporters unless they have those credentials. These are YouTube videos with one person's opinion, my opinion. I've been very open about the fact that I have never voted federally. I did just vote in the BC election that took place last year. I know I'm a part of the problem. I'm trying to work on that. I've learned a lot just talking about my opinion on social media, gathering all these followers. But when it comes to Pierre Poilievre, I've supported him. Heck, I've probably endorsed him half a dozen to a dozen times, maybe even more in my videos. I want Pierre to win. I want the conservatives to win. My values align best with the conservative values. But sometimes they drop the ball. And I've been pretty open about the fact recently that I think Pierre Poilievre is dropping the ball. And it gets worse. To no fault of Pierre, President Trump just kind of endorsed Mark Carney. And some people are saying, hey, that's great for the conservatives, because now liberals are going to say, oh, my goodness, Trump endorses Carney. We can't vote for Carney. We're going to vote for Pierre. But I'm going to lay out why I think this is actually bad for Pierre. On top of some new information that's come to my attention, that some members of Pierre's cabinet or other conservative MPs are either endorsing or affiliated with Khalistani separatists, which is deemed a terrorist organization. So yeah, no, this isn't a very good video, but please don't take your anger out on me. I'm just one dude trying to share my opinion and also share the news. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage you all to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It does really help grow the channel. We got a lot of stuff to look at. Small stories, big stories. Everything is going to be jam-packed in this video. So let's get right into it. Addressing the elephant in the room to start things off. NASA has just recovered, well, in conjunction with SpaceX, has just recovered some astronauts that Joe Biden abandoned in space for like 9 months.
An 8-day trip to space ended with a splash tonight, 286 days later.
And splashdown, Crew 9 back on Earth.
A SpaceX capsule carrying Sunny Williams and Butch Wilmore touched down in the calm waters of the Gulf of Mexico, concluding a saga that began last June. That's when the pair took off from Cape Canaveral, the first 2 astronauts to be carried into space on Boeing's Starliner, a crucial test for the company in order for its capsule to receive NASA approval for routine flights.
Let's get going.
But
I don't think that's going to happen.
Starliner's propulsion system led to cascading delays in getting home.
Merry Christmas!
As weeks stretched to months, NASA made the decision to bring them home on a SpaceX craft as part of the regular crew rotation schedule.
Butch and Sunny will return with Crew 9 next February. And
the craziest part is that Elon Musk offered many times, I believe publicly and privately, under Joe Biden's administration to bring them back, and was shut down every single time because Elon Musk bad, right?
that Starliner will return uncrewed.
The failed test mission was a blow to Boeing's space unit, which has struggled to compete with Elon Musk's SpaceX Crew Dragon. The situation even became political when U.S. President Donald Trump and his close advisor Musk tried to place blame on former President Joe Biden for the failed mission without giving any evidence.
Posing for some final photos.
And so today, in their re-entry suits, Wilmore and Williams posed for a few last photos before beginning the 17-hour journey back to Earth.
Wow, we got a cute little pod of dolphins. It wasn't just one.
Yeah, watch that live.
Pod of dolphins capping off a homecoming. 9 months in the making.
That was pretty cool to see the potted dolphins show up. So a nice little feel-good story there. And then another, I guess, feel-good story or just an interesting story. You have a woman who gave birth in her car alongside a highway in Ontario.
Now, to a surprise arrival on the side of the remote road in Romero Township. OPP were contacted shortly after 3 a.m. today after a woman in labor on her way to the hospital began giving birth on Highway 12 and Concession Road 10. When officers arrived, a beautiful, healthy baby girl had just been born. Emergency crews stayed with the family until EMS arrived to take them to the hospital. We're told that both mother and baby Raven are doing well and are in good spirits.
Oh man, that's so cool. That's so cool. I was lucky enough to be in the hospital for both of the births of my children, and it's pretty wild experience. So giving birth in a car, hey, I salute you. That's incredible. What is not so incredible is the fate of Hudson Bay. Apparently, a bunch of people are flocking downtown to score iconic Hudson Bay blankets because they're about to go tits up in full bankruptcy. They can't afford anything.
At the Bay's flagship store in downtown Vancouver, many departments are practically deserted. The elevators and escalators are out of service, forcing frustrated customers to take the stairs. But one section was teeming with shoppers on Tuesday.
One type of throw and one of the other type of throw. And I have another throw, 2 throws.
Since Hudson's Bay announced it's looking to liquidate and close most or all of its department stores, these striped blankets have been flying off the shelves.
I'm a Hudson's Bay lover. I love the Bay, and I'm very sad it's going to be gone, but I had to have a bit of nostalgia from it.
But not everyone who's buying a blanket is feeling nostalgic. Some are looking to profit, listing larger ones for thousands of dollars on eBay.
As an icon for Canada, I think anything that's got the symbolism of the Hudson Bay colors and stripes is going to be in very high demand.
The Bay's imminent closure is driving that demand, and so is the renewed sense of patriotism many Canadians are feeling right now.
The symbolism means more today than it might have a year ago or a year hence.
But being an iconic Canadian brand couldn't save Hudson's Bay.
The Bay fundamentally would have to have changed its core to be relevant for the future, and it just hadn't changed really the basic concept since its heyday of the 1980s.
And I think you're going to start to see a tremendous amount of companies suffer the same fate. It really feels like sticks and bricks businesses are just going to be going out of business. People in the masses, you might be an exception to this, but people in the masses are just not going out to shop. They're not going out to malls. I mean, every single time I've been to a mall in the past year, which is very few times, it's empty. Like, there's very, very few people there. And so everyone's buying on Amazon or Marketplace, reused stuff or different websites, or even just shopping at the store online. So yeah, I think we're going to see some more closures like that, and it is quite unfortunate. But I'd love to know your guys' thoughts down below. And then we're going to take a look at this, just a quick little glimpse here at this story. Apparently a BC man returned a library book that was 64 years late, along with a $100 check for late fees.
The book itself.
The book, titled Camping and Woodcraft, a handbook for vacation and for travelers in the wilderness by Horace Kephart, was checked out by Robert Murray on May 10th, 1960.
Books are often late, but you don't always hear from the individual who took them out.
Murray, a UBC engineering student and outdoor enthusiast, had read his fair share of books, but he says nothing like this.
I thought they were pretty much garbage, but I picked this book up just by happenstance and realized that it was gold.
Murray even credits the book with potentially saving his and his son David's life after a hike took a turn for the worse.
David wanted to put the tent up, and I says, nope, no good. We just take the water inside with us and freeze. So we put up a tarp, lean-to, got a fire going in front of it.
The 83-year-old says he always wanted to return the book, and after a recent health scare, decided it was the right time.
I mean, speaking of things going extinct, I also firmly believe that libraries will be going extinct sometime in the near future. I personally don't remember the last time I was in a library, but maybe you have a recent story that you can share down in the comments. And then we're going to switch back to political stuff. You've got Pierre Poilievre, who vows to kill the industrial carbon tax if he becomes prime minister.
It's the topic Pierre Poilievre is desperate to have an election over.
Conservative government will repeal the entire carbon tax, including the federal backstop that requires provinces impose industrial taxes.
After 2 years of questioning, the Conservative leader finally saying he would remove the industrial carbon tax levied against Canada's largest producers, which according to the Canadian Climate Institute represents 42% of national emissions. Poilievre's replacement?
Wow. We will expand eligibility for the clean technology and clean manufacturing investment tax credits.
But tax credits have proven to be considerably less effective, which according to the Canadian Climate Institute is responsible for only 3% of Canada's emissions decrease.
So this comes to the news because Mark Carney, illegitimate but somehow legitimate Prime Minister, Mark Carney has said that he signed that piece of paper that looked like an executive order, which is indeed legitimate, where he reduced the consumer carbon tax down to zero. It's still there, but the government is not collecting anything. Zero collection. But there's also an industrial carbon tax on Canada's largest polluters. So that does trickle down onto us. So it is a little bit deceiving, but hey, that is quite literally politicking in the political season. It's just, I don't like it. I think it stinks. And I think that getting rid of the tax completely is probably the best way to move forward. But let me know your guys' thoughts down below. Then you have Russian president versus the American president, who recently had a phone call to discuss a ceasefire in Ukraine. It doesn't seem to be going as per what Trump's plan wants to happen. There's a partial agreement, not a full agreement.
Their nearly 2-hour-long phone call ended with a vague agreement that the war in Ukraine should end with a lasting peace, with negotiations to start immediately. How U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin get there is another matter. Putin agreed to stop attacking energy targets for the next 30 days, falling short of the U.S.-backed 30-day unconditional ceasefire Ukraine previously agreed to. What's more, the Kremlin said any lasting peace must see the complete halt of foreign military aid and intelligence sharing with Ukraine, and must address what Putin called the root causes of the crisis. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said even a partial ceasefire would be a step toward peace, but warned Moscow was seeking to weaken Kyiv with its demands.
I think it's absolutely a dangerous precedent, in part because it deflects away from the fact that this war is a result of Vladimir Putin's Russia invading its neighbor.
Trump described the call as productive. Left unsaid is what concessions the U.S. may ultimately demand from Kyiv, after long hinting Ukraine should be prepared to give up territory.
Man, the freaking left isn't satisfied until their enemy is completely crushed. Like, there is no room for compromise with these people. A ceasefire is great for everybody. There is so many unnecessary deaths in that war. There's so much money going to funding this war, right? Like how many billions of dollars? $20 billion is what Justin Trudeau in his final days bragged about. His final days as prime minister. Let me be clear about that one, to quote a liberal. All right. We spent $20+ billion equivalent. Cash included in that, also tanks and weapons and bullets, ammunition, all of that is included, I believe, in that $20 billion estimate, when it's above that. So yeah, kind of crazy, man. I'm pretty much fed up with that war, and I think a lot of people, a lot of viewers of this channel also are. Now let's take a look, speaking of Trump, let's take a look at the recent controversy of what was said. Oh, man. All right. We're going to ease into this. So Donald Trump did talk about his good old pal, Justin, and why he refers to him as governor. Here we go.
Look, I deal with every country, indirectly or directly. One of the nastiest countries to deal with is Canada. The people that, now this was Trudeau, The people that good old Justin, I call him Governor Trudeau, his people were nasty. And they weren't telling the truth. They never told the truth. You know that, they'd say, well, we don't charge. Well, they do. They charge tremendous. They charge tremendous. And if you look at dairy products, what they've done to our farmers, I'd go up to Iowa, I'd go up to different places, Nebraska, and they would always complain about Canada, how they get ripped off. Do you know that Canada has a 250% tariff? 250, nobody knows that. They charge us numbers that are crazy. Look,
right?
Yeah, so that is easing into it. That wasn't that bad, but it gets a little bit worse. So in this clip, President Trump actually destroys the leader of the opposition, Pierre Poilievre.
Much more. We have much more.
I don't think so.
Just so you understand, we subsidize Canada, and I like Canada. I love Canada. I love Wayne
now
Gretzky.
the Liberal guys.
I love his wife.
The Liberal Party is going to win now in the next election, most likely. And they were down and out. Isn't that going to make them more hostile to us and possibly
I'd rather deal with a liberal than a
for
conservative.
China closer to Canada, and that would really put us in a bind.
The conservative that's running is stupidly no friend of mine. I don't know him, but he said negative things. So when he says negative things, I couldn't care less. I think it's easier to deal actually with a liberal. And maybe they're going to win, but I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me at all.
So your end game is what with them?
My end game is I don't want to have a big deficit. I don't want to see the United States of America, and you say 60 and I say 200, but it doesn't matter. I don't want us to pay 60 or $200 billion to a country that if they were a state, think of this, it would be our biggest, most beautiful, it would be great.
If they were our state. So the whole rhetoric of Canada potentially becoming the 51st state, now it's Canada has always meant to be the 51st state. And that is very clearly said right here.
Here's my problem with Canada. Canada was meant to be the 51st state because we subsidize Canada by $200 billion a year. We don't need their cars. We don't need their lumber. We have a lot of lumber. We freed it up, as you know, last week. We're freeing it up so that you can actually cut down a tree without being, given the death penalty. Because what these radical environmentalists have done to our country, but we freed it up. But we don't need their lumber. We don't need their energy. We don't need anything. We certainly don't want their automobiles. They make a lot of millions of automobiles are sent in. I'd rather have them made in Michigan. I'd rather have them made in South Carolina or any one of our...
You're tougher with Canada than you are with some of our biggest adversaries.
Only because it's meant to be our 51st state.
Only because it's meant to be our 51st state. Keep in mind, this is on Fox, which is more right-leaning than the other mainstream medias in America. And so I'm not saying that they should be kissing his butt. However, when there's that type of pushback from Fox on you're harder on Canada than everyone else, you kind of have to ask the question, what the heck is really going on? Now, I apparently, according to CTV, have endorsed President Trump. I genuinely forgot or didn't know that I did that, but it turns out that I have. Look, I like Trump. I like his uniqueness to politics. He says and does some wild things. Call it art of the deal. Call it whatever you want. It is what it is. And I'm, for the most part, a fan of it. But when you're on the brink of a Canadian federal election and you've got Elon Musk in your corner who says Pierre Poilievre is great. You also talk to Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan says, oh, yeah, that Canadian politician who ate the apple while talking to the reporter. That guy is great. When people around Trump have been vocal about, Pierre Poilievre is like a good fit for Canada. He's a conservative. You could probably work for him. The fact that President Trump just came out and literally said, I would rather work with a liberal, that conservative guy says some nasty things. I don't like it. I don't want that. That's kind of where we're getting into dangerous territory. Now, two takeaways that I've seen from this. This is great for Pierre. This is phenomenal for Pierre because all the liberals are going to wake up in the morning and they're going to go, oh my goodness, he endorses Mark Carney, but we can't support that because Orange Man bad. That is a valid angle. And maybe if I had more time to think about it, I could reach to that level. But here's my takeaway. And I posted about this on X. The more Pierre Poilievre has tried to distance himself from President Trump, the more he slashes his existing support. This is something that I've been vocal about for as long as this has been going on, right? I fully think that there's a lot of Canadians out there that are conservatives that like Trump, that want to support Pierre. But the more that Pierre's been attacking Trump and going against Trump, then, I mean, the more he's slashing his own base. Now, when it comes push to shove, who are you going to support? Are you going to support a foreign president, or are you going to support your own prime minister in your own country? Well, that answer is easy. Your own prime minister or your own country. So if I had to pick which person I preferred over Trump or Pierre, it obviously would be Pierre, right? Obviously it would be Carney and Liberals. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. That's not even funny. It's not even April 1st yet. Obviously, I would prefer Pierre Poilievre. But Pierre has been attacking Trump, and it's been backfiring, and we've seen it. We've seen it in the social norm on social media, how people are talking. I like Pierre, but I don't like how he's doing that. We've seen it in the polls. Whether you want to view that as fake or not, we've still seen a shift. Enough of a shift to make a big difference, unfortunately. Trump basically just endorsed Mark Carney. Check and mate, unfortunately. Will Pierre try to brush up to Trump? I don't think so at all. Will Pierre try to create more distance under the guise of Canada First? Yes, he will, I believe. Believe the polls or don't believe the polls, I think the sooner Mark Carney calls an election, the better his chances are. 4 more effing years of a Liberal government. I can't even buy American whiskey to drink the feeling away because they took it off the shelves. Now, again, another side of the coin that's brought to my attention by Wyatt Claypool is this is a bad moment for Carney. Trump said he dislikes Poilievre basically because he is tougher than Carney. He didn't say it in those words, but the subtext was clear, right? Because then it becomes the whole rhetoric of, well, it's easier to control a Liberal than it is Pierre. And that absolutely is something that a lot of us could agree on, but I have a feeling that this is not good for Pierre. He literally just said he doesn't care about Pierre. Some people are calling it 5D chess, 10D chess, 9D chess, whatever you want to say about it. At the end of the day, my opinion, my life experiences, I just feel like this is a negative for Pierre. Whether you want to believe these stats or not, these are the polls that I've quoted for 3+ years. Sure, there could be some Kamala Harris stuff happening where they're trying to, puff it up to demoralize the conservatives. I'm so used to saying 99% likely across the board for the conservatives to win the most seats and odds of a majority outcome, but that's not the case anymore. According to these polls, it's 85% likely for the Liberals of winning the most seats and 55% likely for the Liberals winning a majority. And again, call it whatever you want. Call it fake numbers. Call it a puff piece. I just stand firm on that, especially when you take into consideration all of the other things that Pierre isn't doing or is doing. And when you have this post come out, it doesn't really help. Can the Conservative Party of Canada explain why their Punjab MPs with alleged ties to Khalistanis spend so much time outside of their riding and in a different province trying to elect other people, Punjabs, which in this case didn't even have a Conservative Party membership, instead of much more experienced candidates, which happened to be white? And I replied to this post saying, is Canada being invaded by these Khalistan folks? Which is something that I've kind of dabbled in a little bit, but not a whole lot. And the replies are, as you can see, for 30 years, but the last 10 have really accelerated it. They invaded and started blowing up airplanes decades ago. And so there's been a bit of an infiltration, it seems, of Khalistani people into the Conservative Party, or like adjacent, like maybe not in the party, but members of the party look to be seemingly trying to endorse them at different levels of government. Them as in the Khalistani people, which are designated terrorist organizations. So yeah, that's not good. There's a lot of moving parts on this, and it changes day to day. How does Pierre fix it, right? I provide a lot of this criticism, but people say I never provide a solution. And my answer is, it's not really my job to provide a solution for Pierre. If I have a solution, I throw it out there. I've been very open since like over a year ago about the fact that we should be using our north for data mining centers and nuclear centers. And 6 months ago, 8 months ago, I started to hear Pierre Poilievre talk about it. Now, am I suggesting that he's stealing my ideas? I have no idea. I've talked about it. It's out there. It's just my opinion. Can we have the same opinion? Sure, absolutely. When it comes to this, when it comes to his campaign, I feel like it needs to be more focus on positive things, making life better for Canadians. I'm just personally so sick and tired of hearing Justin Trudeau's name. It's just like, come on, man, get over it. And the attacks, I get it's part of politics, but the attacks on Carney and faking this, you know, the removing the consumer carbon tax and the legitimacy of that, like, people just want to know, are they going to be able to afford food this week, this month, this year? Can they buy a house? Are we going to be building more homes? What's that plan? I know he's said that many times in the past, but I haven't heard all of those great talking points that build Pierre up to where he is. I haven't heard them in quite some time. And so it would be a little bit refreshing to revisit all of those old points with maybe new statistics, new data, maybe a little bit different talking points, but the same type of values, basically. That's my opinion. That's all I've got right now in terms of what advice do I have for Mr. Poilievre. And then you have Mark Carney, who is putting money into our defense, specifically swooping in front of the United States to buy world-leading Australian radar technology. This is a $6 billion piece of equipment that Prime Minister Carney is, you know, pledging to or actually is buying for missile defense system in Canada, which is interesting. It's interesting that he's able to spend that kind of money when government's probed.
Technology developed about 4 decades ago in Australia, known as the Jindalee Over-the-Horizon Radar System, or JORN for short. Australia uses it to monitor the northern approaches to this country, and it is considered world-leading. It can stretch out for thousands of kilometres and uses unique technology to detect incoming threats. Well, overnight, the Canadian new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, spoke to his Australian counterpart, Anthony Albanese, and then travelled to a remote Arctic region of Canada to make this announcement of a $6 billion purchase for JORN to be used in Canada to detect threats over the Arctic. Let's hear now from the Canadian leader.
Today I'm announcing that our government will be working with our long-standing defence and security partners, Australia, to build a new long-range over-the-horizon military radar system. This is an investment of more than $6 billion in the most advanced and efficient radar system. The over-the-horizon radar system will enable Canada to detect and respond to both air and maritime threats over our Arctic faster and from further away. It will, most fundamentally, keep all Canadians safe.
That was Mark Carney, the new Canadian Prime Minister. Well, this news broke overnight, and the government was not the first here in Australia to announce it. It waited, obviously, for Canada to do so. But the
Kind of interesting that we're getting into that type of technology. I wonder if under either Mark Carney or if Pierre Poilievre is able to secure a victory in this eventual upcoming election, if Canada will start to get nuclear, right? Like, we have been completely denuclearized. Justin Trudeau would have rather hugged a tree or taken a photo in a selfie wearing a baseball cap, a jean jacket in the Canadian Tire aisle than properly set up defenses for our country. I wonder if all of that has changed, and if it seems like Carney wants to put a lot of money into our defense budget, which I don't support. Carney, I do not endorse him. However, he seems to be beating Pierre Poilievre to the punch when it comes to actually investing in our country and putting political parties aside, all of that stuff, just the greater good of this country. It's kind of cool to see more money actually be poured into our defense spending. We just can only hope that it stays here in Canada and doesn't get donated to Ukraine. That is the end of the video, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to drop a like and subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you all in another video. Bye for now.